Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and this week I'm sharing one of the most intimidating face-ups I've ever done. For one, this is probably the smallest BJD I've ever worked on. He's an Iplehouse FID, and he's so small. On top of that, this is my first ever paid commission, and I'm terrified that I'm going to mess this doll up. He's an absolutely beautiful sculpt, and I have really clear instructions on what I'm supposed to do with him, so hopefully I can bring him to life okay. I've done face-ups on dolls for other people before, but this one is the first time that it's ever been a real commission, and not just me being like, hey, let me paint your doll. But I only know so many people locally who have dolls for me to paint, and I still want to keep expanding my portfolio and growing my skills, so after the practice I've done on my own dolls, I felt it was finally time to start moving forward and expanding into a commission portfolio too. I started with 3 layers of Mr. Super Clear sealant, and then I start doing the paint lines using gouache. Gouache has been my favorite for face-ups for a while now because of how easily it erases. I feel like that extra comfort level is really important when working on a doll like this, where I'm really intimidated, because I know even if I mess up, it'll be easy to wipe off. One of my favorite tricks I picked up over the past couple face-ups I've done is using a really tiny paintbrush to erase any lines that go astray, because even if they're in the eyelashes or just a single hair in the eyebrows, I can use a really small paintbrush with water to wipe it off. One interesting thing about this guy to note is that he is the real skin resin, which is actually what I wanted for Rune, but back when I got Rune they didn't offer this resin. He's an absolutely beautiful color. I have a hard time getting my camera to focus because he's so small, and I'm not really sure where my hands need to be. There are a few places where, when I'm putting down lines, the paint beads up on the surface a little bit. That happens a lot when using water to thin paints. You can counteract it by using flow aid, which helps reduce surface tension, and that way the paints won't bead up like that. Unfortunately, I haven't unpacked my flow aid yet, and I'm not entirely sure where it is. Because he's so small, I also have a hard time keeping him centered. I have a hard time keeping the camera focused. And of course, my hands are shaking so bad that I can't get some of the lines straight either. I end up having to do the eyebrows a couple times before I hit a shape that seems just right. With every face-up I do, I try to challenge my skills a little bit more and teach myself some new things. With this doll, I worked on refining the eyebrow shapes and trying some new directions for strokes to get a more natural feel. I think it's definitely good progress. And that's part of why I want to do these. The challenge of bringing somebody else's vision to life is really interesting, and it forces me to work in ways and on things that I wouldn't normally do on my own dolls. You can see in the sideburns that a couple of those lines of paints bead up like I mentioned. Fortunately, since it's gouache, I can go back over it with a wet paintbrush and even them out. For the first layer of blushing, I lay down a custom mix of peach and kind of a rust brown. The idea is that this will give him a bit of a golden glow. I'll go back over this with some peach tones to help cool them out and add a little bit of pink. He'll have lots of brown eyeshadow too, which I think looks beautiful on this resin color. Though I have a few schmink pastels in these colors, I'm sticking with my low Cornell pastels because I know them better and I feel like I get better results with the materials I use frequently. I also have a much bigger variety of colors in that pack of pastels, so it lets me make a lot of custom blends. When I blush the brows and facial hair, I start with a gray instead of the black I'll end up using at the end. I feel like putting down some gray first helps add some interesting dimension. You might see a lot of color shifts in the tonality of this video, and there are some times that it looks a lot more yellow than it actually is in person. Part of that is getting used to the new lighting in my studio, and part of it is the fact that I did this face up over probably about 5 separate days. Each time I worked on it was a different time of day, so the lighting was often a little bit different. Next time I do face ups, I'll probably try to set up a second umbrella light just to even out the color. We don't want his lips to be too shiny, so for this face up I use my Tamiya X22 gloss, which is not as shiny as the Americana Triple Thick gloss I use on my girls. Once I glue in some lashes, he's pretty much done. The glue still has to dry for 24 hours before I can put in his eyes, but I think that's it. He's done, and I think for how badly my hands were shaking, he turned out pretty okay. He's a really handsome sculpt, so I'm excited to see him all put together when he gets back to his owner. That's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.